Hello, everybody. So, this is out of Yahoo, and this is out of respect for people who are in the profession of education, teachers preferably. Um, this is sad but true, and I can honestly say that I know this to be true. That with these articles, I saw this article first, and there's a second article, and they're not going to sound pretty, but teachers usually get a bad rap. There's some good teachers, there's some not so good teachers. And so, speaking of that, um, this story right here, it talks about some of the difficult experiences that teachers have here in America. And a lot of people don't really realize that teachers are underpaid and they're underappreciated. And so it reads Bite marks, bruises, and dislocated shoulders. How America's teachers are battling classroom violence. And so this is Mahira Dayal. Although reports of teachers becoming violent against students permeate the news, there is another epidemic of violence happening in the classroom, and this one is which teachers become the victims. So take Brett Bingham, a teacher in Oregon, who recalled being beaten to the ground, whipped by a TV cord, and bitten so badly that he was sent to the hospital. So just a few days before he was named the Teacher of the Year, and an unspecified time after he suffered other attacks by students, including being hit twice with a chair, bitten in various places, and slapped more times than I can count. So another teacher in Florida suffered a student throwing chairs at her and flipping a table on its side. So the student also kicked me and bruised my leg, according to the Broward County Teachers Union report on violence against teachers in that district. And so then there was a Wisconsin incident, Wisconsin high school cooking class in which a student kicked a paraeducator in the stomach and punched another teacher in the eye during an attempt to restrain him, and eventually picked up a chef's knife, which is a lot worse, threatening to stab two teachers with it. So he was shouting at that he wanted us dead. So a special education teacher recently recounted the NEA Today, a trade publication. After 15 minutes, we finally got the knife away, and he ran out of the room without cutting anyone. 10% of public school teachers reported being threatened with injuries by a student. And so this happens. So there are teachers that are in crisis. And so in South Carolina, a teacher was so scarred by the repeated physical abuse by two boys in her high school class, including during an already stressful lockdown drill, being held and shaken violently, and that she wound up with PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress syndrome. So that's what she was diagnosed. So if I pulled up my sleeves and I had red marks on my arm, she yells, Yahoo, to Yahoo Lifestyle. So, and though that teacher who wishes to remain anonymous filled out an incident report and went to her department head, reported the assault to the principal, and she says that she was treated like she was in the wrong. And so you can shake a teacher and hurt her to the point that her arm is in a sling and nothing will happen to you, was the message that she says was communicated by the administration to her and the other teachers as well. So she remembers having a panic attack and breaking down as a result. So eventually taking a few days off, suffering lasting pain from a contusion on her arm and struggling with depression. Eventually she quit. And so these teachers are far from alone. So this is what's happening in most of American schools, where the teachers are also being abused. So as if low pay, low morale, and the pressure of standardized tests and the threat of the classroom shootings are not enough stress for the public school teachers in America. Violence against them from the very students they're trying to educate is yet another piece of the ongoing crises. Yahoo Lifestyle's exclusive survey of teachers who have left public schools uncovered stories in class violence and on coast to coast in America. So we would get knocked out, have coffee spilled on us, shoulders dislocated, and now a retired teacher in Kern County, California, tells Yahoo Lifestyle about what he had witnessed during his 24 years in that profession. So the various students show the problem is only getting worse. So I was actually diagnosed with PTSD after being assaulted by a student. So this was a former science teacher in South Carolina. So in 2018, a government study on school crime and safety compiled agencies from various U.S. departments, education and justice, found that 10% of the public school teachers, approximately 320,000, have reported being treated or threatened with an injury by the student. 6% meanwhile reported that they had been physically attacked, higher than in almost all previous surveys and years. And so the actual numbers, although, are likely even higher, as 1 in 5 educators say that they don't report such incidents, according to a recent study by Ohio State University researchers. Of the 3,403 kindergarten through 12th grade teachers surveyed, 2,505, or about 74%, said that they had been a victim of some type of form of violence. Of those, 25% reported actual physical or abuse or assault, 20% reported threats of physical violence, 37% described verbal insults and sexual advances as well. So still, 20% kept the information from administration. So 14% did not disclose the incident to a coworker, and nearly 24% kept the news from the family. So you would think that the first thing a teacher would do after a violent encounter or a threat would be to tell the school administrator, but 20% aren't even doing that. So that's disturbing. Lead author Eric Anderman said in a press release at the time. So too many teachers aren't taking to anyone, or they're not talking to anyone about what has happened in their classroom. So Sonia Smith, president of the Chesterfield Education Association in Virginia, echoed these findings in NEA Today. Many do not report assaults from students for fear of the retribution from administrators. She said there are more incidents happening that go unreported. It's a systemic problem. Of course, I'm adding that in there. It is a problem. And so the impact of such violence on both teachers and the education system at large, whether reported or not, is a silent national crisis. And so according to this, a report on the subject by the American Physiological or Psychological Association, APA, which found that the costs range from the lost days of work, wages, increased medical expenses to the teacher leaving the field prematurely, and increased workers' compensation claims. So in the states, high levels of violence against teachers its victims have expressed frustration over what they perceive as a lack of assistance from administrators. So in 2019, the report prepared by Broward County Teachers Union in Florida, for example, indicates that at least half of the teachers in the district have felt that their personal safety was in jeopardy while teaching. So over 75% say that student behavior is worse than it was the previous year, and many educators feel like administration didn't do enough to support them when they reported such incidences of student misconduct. So as one teacher featured in the report noted, when I told administration I wanted the student removed, they said that they would honor my request, but trade that student with a child who had more severe behavior issues. So the same teacher also described how administration allegedly dissuaded her from taking further action. So I also wanted to press charges, but was told that it would go on my permanent teaching record. And so a fourth grade teacher had a similar experience and wound up having knee surgery from a torn meniscus after a student threw a desk at her. And so I have never experienced this type of abuse as a teacher. And an educator said in the report that what hurts the most is that nothing was done about it, and I still had to teach with the student in my class. So however, my teachers chose, many teachers have chose to just keep quiet and suffer in silence after being assaulted by students. So Anna Fusco, president of Broward Teachers Union, tells Yahoo Lifestyle that these acts of violence aren't isolated, and that to stop them, administrations or administrators need to adopt a more proactive approach. So the Broward County survey, according to Fusco's, was aimed at exploring the widespread reports of violence against teachers. So I believe it's a national problem. Fusco says that we learned that the survey that violence on teachers from students needs to be addressed more seriously, and there needs to be a quick action when the violence happens. So after the survey was released, the school board in Broward County sent a letter to Fusco saying it planned to investigate every incident, though through a discipline committee. So in a statement on Yahoo Lifestyle, the school board noted that the safety and well-being of our teachers is something Broward County and Broward County Public Schools, which is abbreviated BCPS, takes very seriously. So the district discipline committee, made up of teachers, parents, principals, students, and the BCPS administrative representatives, will address feedback from our teachers, and this will include associations or occasions and circumstances of incidences and how they are reported and processed and the prevention, of course. So while that may alleviate the problem of Broward County teachers facing violence in the classrooms across the nation need a plan too. So as the retired California educator tells Yahoo Lifestyle, teachers quit all the time, and that is true. And so he retired 5 years earlier for the sake of his mental health. And so a retired 60-year-old says that when our bodies can't handle stress as easily, okay, so I guess that's pretty much the article from that one. So that was kind of sad because it talks about the violence that happens in the classroom towards the teachers, which is true. And I have to be honest and say that I've actually witnessed this happen to several teachers. I've also seen where teachers inflict violence upon other teachers. That's not talked about either. That's swept under the rug. And the teachers, if one teacher has higher seniority and has friends, then that teacher, sometimes they will lie for that teacher. If they don't know who the sub is, or they don't know who the other teacher, if they're fairly new, that teacher, if that other teacher has been working too long and stressed out, they inflict violence upon another teacher. So it's not just kids inflicting violence on teachers, but also other teachers and other staff and inflicting violence or verbal insults or doing things towards other teachers. And so that hasn't been really talked about, and I'm adding that in there because I have witnessed and actually experienced it myself. And so this one right here is pretty bad too, because this happens in classrooms a lot with teachers where they're understaffed. I think my bladder changed. Former teacher describes years without bathroom breaks. Yes, that happens. And so this is about teachers in crises. This is Jamila Pitts, who spent 6 years as an English teacher in the New York public schools before moving to an administrative position, to an administration. So teaching was my life's calling, so it wasn't a job for me, she says. So for her, it was what she planned to do for the long haul as a career. So when Jamila Pitts decided to switch from teaching English, switch from teaching English at a New York public school to working in administration, she felt immediately riddled by guilt. So a large part of the reason why I am able to have experiences that were vastly different from my family members and peers is that I grew up with was the role of other educators played in my life, she says. So for me, it felt really selfish and really difficult to walk away from the students in that capacity. So, however, with a little time to eat lunch or even use the restroom, Pitts felt not only overwhelmed by the mental and physical demands of teaching itself, but by the unique challenges she faced as a black educator. So, as a black woman teaching predominantly students of color, it was really difficult to not carry home the burdens and the stories that she says it was really difficult to turn that off and then to walk home and leave it. So part of the problem, says Pitts, is that she could understand so well that the racism, sexism, oppression that they were going through. And so this is what some of her kids were going through, and she understands a lot of things that were happening because she too is a person of color. So it is really difficult to teach about something and try to negate something while you are living it. So she tells Yahoo Lifestyle, and then to have your students represent that back for you. So it is overwhelming in ways that I can't fully describe. So ultimately she felt that taking on an administrative role where she still interacts with students would be a better choice, but it wasn't an easy one. So teaching was my life's calling, she says. It wasn't a job for me. Pitts is one of more than 50 teachers who decided to share a story of leaving the field with the Yahoo Lifestyle. Her answers, some of which have been edited to clarify, are below. So location, New York, New York. Subject that she taught was English. How many years? 6. Did you ever feel like your mental health was in jeopardy as a teacher? Absolutely. Sleep was definitely affected. I'm very much an empathy, and very much struggled with anxiety. There was one point in a teaching career where, in order to make it through the rest of the year, I was taking antidepressants. And that's something that I'm not shy about, and I won't blame the teaching profession per se, because there are a lot of different things that go into mental health. But when you're in an environment that is not conducive to caring for yourself, it amplifies it and it can make it worse. And for me, remaining in the classroom was a part of that. What about physical challenges? I am pretty sure that my bladder has changed because of teaching. So some days I had no bathroom breaks. Honestly, none. So it depends on the amount of time that you have in between transitions. If you're a teacher that has to teach them multiple classrooms, for example, but there were definitely days when I would have to send an all-staff email like, I need to step out of my classroom and use the restroom. So can someone please come relieve me? So, I mean, a doctor has not diagnosed this yet, but I am pretty sure that my teaching schedule impacted my bladder. So the next question was, what were your main feelings about walking away from that profession to go to a different one? So there was just a tremendous amount of guilt, and there were many moments when I did feel selfish. Teaching was my life's calling, and it wasn't just a job for me, so it wasn't just a career. And so it felt really, really difficult and selfish to walk away, but ultimately that was something that I had to rectify within myself. So you cannot pour out if you are emptied. Okay, so there were just many days when I was constantly empty, and I was pouring out from an empty cup. And so I think it's important to say that it was never ever my students. So the students are why I stayed in the work of the profession, that is, why I decided to show up every day last year, was my first full year out of the classroom, but definitely there's a really special and powerful exchange that comes from the classroom and day in and day out. I think that teachers are very much in the trenches, and there are a lot of things that can be improved, but there is nothing as enriching and rewarding as it is to teach. And so there are related articles about teachers' authorized strike that's going on in Chicago. A tally of ballots showed that 94% of some of the $25,000 dues or 25,000 dues paying members. And it goes on and it says things that have gotten so bad, why teachers in America are leaving the classroom for good. And these are articles that are in similar relation. So there's also this that also has to do with the Trump administration, believe it or not, and this is something that I've seen that is happening. This is something I also had been keeping watch on in regards to schools, is 500,000 children could lose free school lunches under the Trump administration plan. Kids who are hungry can't learn. And so this is by Rachel Grumman Bender. And so this thing is recent, and I had been keeping watch on this because it seems like it's something that is pretty important, being so that free lunch has been something that has been offered to most students in most states. And so it is now being threatened that it may be taken out of school. So the Trump administration proposal to cut SNAP benefits could lead to 500,000 children in need losing access to free school lunches. So a Trump administration plan to cut numbers of people who qualify for food stamps could result in free school lunches being eliminated for 500,000 children in need. So the rule announced on July the 23rd by the U.S. Department of Agriculture would limit the number of people who receive benefits under the SNAP program, which is Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, which is called SNAP. So an estimated 3.1 million Americans would be affected by this, but the proposal did not disclose the cut's ripple effect. Since food stamps are one of the ways that students become eligible for free school lunches, cutting those benefits could leave 500,000 children without school meals, reports the Washington Post. So several organizations are speaking out against this proposal that is on the table right now. So we think that the administration should withdraw the rule, and Crystal Fitzsimmons, school and out of school time programs director for the Food Research and Action Center, tells Yahoo Lifestyle. The rule is, if they move forward with it, it is expected to impact 500,000 kids' automatic access to free school lunches. And so we would expect school meals deaths, which is growing issue. It's a growing issue right now. And so there was an article talking about how if I know I saw this, where if the parents don't pay for this kid's lunch, if it was reduced or they had to pay for the lunch, that they would call social services. And I saw that. It was crazy, but they said that they would call social services or something. And so it was getting kind of really, really strict. So Fitzsimmons adds that kids who are hungry can't learn, so they have a hard time focusing, concentrating, and behaving. So there's a huge body of research on the positive impact that access to a healthy diet has on learning. And so American Federation of Teachers President Randy Weingart calls the proposal very cruel. It's very cruel. So she tells Yahoo Lifestyle this. So in the richest country in the world, and no child should be denied access to a lunch at school because of their parents' income level, or a cruel attempt by the Trump administration to cut food benefit programs for the needy kids. So Weingart adds, So hungry children cannot focus on learning. Instead of shaming them, we should be investigating in programs that support them and help them feel safe and welcome at school, nutrition programs that promote healthy habits and nurture families facing food scarcity, affordable breakfast and lunch, and any kid who needs it, and other communities and school supports that build students up, not tear them down. So not only would 500,000 children be impacted by this plan, but the teachers would be affected as well. So there's another issue that would affect teachers also, as well as students. So according to a Yahoo Lifestyle survey, 50 teachers throughout the U.S., educators are already paying hundreds and in some cases thousands of dollars each year out of their own pockets to provide supplies for their classrooms and students as well. So, but the money doesn't only go to pencil and paper. Teachers also help hungry students in need of buying them food. So more hungry students could mean teachers spending even more money out of their own pockets without getting reimbursed for it. So the impact for teachers who are really on the front lines, they're going to be feeling it, says Fitzsimmons. So teachers who see hunger among the students are more likely to provide food. So no teacher wants students in the classroom to be sitting there hungry. So a lot of them will step in. So the proposal will increase hunger both at school and at home as well. So schools will be struggling to deal with and respond to this crisis as well. So as vanguard. So teachers already spend money out of their own pockets because they want their students to be successful. So this new rule by the Trump administration will not only, it would not change that, but it is unfair and simply unnecessary. So Courtney Jones, an elementary school teacher from the Tyler, Texas, who founded what is called the Clear the List. I believe it's all mushed together, the words. So I believe it's Clear the List to help teachers buy items on their school supply list, wish list. Okay, so yeah, I had to look at it because it's all pushed together. And so it says it's called Clear the List, and so that it helps the teachers buy the school supplies that they need on a wish list, so that teachers get a wish list. I believe it might happen at like every semester or every year. So I'm adding that in there because I know that's to be the case. So it says that if the child or children are hungry in the school of the parents that are not able to provide for them, the teachers often feel obligated to meet these demands. So it is why we spend so much out of pocket, she says. And so Jones says that the proposal rule to cut the benefits would negatively affect children's ability to learn as well. So we're putting that burden on them. So am I going to eat or not today? That's the question. And so that's what kids will have in their mind. So am I going to eat or not today? So if that's they're not getting the nutrients that they need, then how are they going to perform in school or perform? She says so. But Jones also knows that teachers will do whatever they can to help those students in need. So I think that's why people are in the profession to give, but it shouldn't be monetary or about food, says Jones. It should be focusing specifically on the subject of teaching kids to learn and to gain skills so that they can be productive citizens at some point and get a job or career that benefits them. And I'm adding that in there. So food should be an automatic. They should get that in schools. That shouldn't be something that should be cut or they have to feel stressed about, getting. So it just seems like a no-brainer. Okay, so she adds, obviously, we're going to make up the difference if we have to for the sake of the kids, and it is so sad. And so I thought these were really important articles. So these are things coming from teachers in crises. Okay, so there's a lot of different things that happen, a lot of interesting articles in regards to teachers. Most teachers spend at least $500 of their own money on school supplies. So Some teachers had to buy their own desk and chairs. And so things that have gotten so bad in the teaching world in America, teachers that are leaving the classroom for good, they're trying to go get different jobs because of pay issues. Florida teacher says that the profession is no longer sustainable. Who wants to be poor by choice? Okay, so some teachers complain they don't like being in the profession, and then those that are in the profession, we have another added problem. Trump cutting the school lunches will be impacted for kids all over America. And so what do you think about this? This is really sad. These are things that are happening. Teachers that are being abused in the classroom as well. And then you have other issues that are going on where teachers are not getting restroom breaks. And so that has been an ongoing issue because they're understaffed and they don't have a lot of people that want to stay in those professions. But when you see what's going on in these American classrooms, I mean, how do you feel? It's like a mixed bag of problems. With that being said, like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for listening.